Patrick Banning actually called me up and was like, come move to Utah. And I was like, no, Utah's cold. And I told him no several times. The technicians seem to really hate and love Orange Theory at the same time because they hate those tight time schedules. I walked back to my desk just confused and was like, what just happened? And my boss was there with a box and a piece of paper, and he was like, pack up anything you want.
Hey gang, Scott here with NAHFTA, and I got Tabetha Center with me today. And if you guys don't know her, just the quick background is she started off at Nautilus way back when was Nautilus its own brand, or was it owned by Medcore?
It was its own brand when I
It was its,
started.
it was its own brand. Okay. Eventually ended up at Core Health and Fitness for a long time. You guys got to really know her over at iFit, and now she's leading the way and building out the service department at Stepper. So we hope to get a lot out of what she knows about the industry on the back end, the things that we don't see on a daily basis, helping us understand how the industry has grown and changed, the goods, the bads, the in-betweens. Tabetha, thanks for sitting down with me today. I do appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So let's start back at like what gets a young lady working at Nautilus and then ends up this many years down the road staying in the industry.
Well, funny enough, I started at Nautilus for a summer job.
Okay.
My sister-in-law worked there, and at the time they were offering like $1,000 bonus if you could get somebody to be hired. And it was split between the person at the company and the new person. And I was trying to figure out what field I wanted to go into because I was looking into college. And my sister-in-law was like, well, come here, we'll split the money and you'll figure it out by the end of summer. And 19 years later, I'm still in the fitness industry and never left. But my dad is actually a professional bodybuilder. So I think once I was at Nautilus, it kind of was just really natural. I already knew the world from his side of things and just kind of found my niche.
Interesting. So yeah, so I guess that makes sense. Some familiarity, right? If dad's lifting
Mhm.
and whatnot, then you are. This is just it's comfortable. You know it.
Yeah,
You've been there. Did he pull you? Did he drag you to the gym with him when you were younger?
yeah. Did the
Yeah.
gym thing. We've been gym partners several different times at different gyms. So when you start at Nautilus, they make you start in the Bowflex side talking to the customers before you
Mhm.
can venture anywhere else. And there was a lot of times you had to kind of talk to the customers trying to explain like, well, this is good for your body this way. And I was like, oh, well, I actually already know this from my experience of going to 24-hour fitness with my dad and things like that. So it did just become really natural and stuff.
Okay. And and you were on the customer service side, so but at that point in time was customer service was it the sales version of customer service or the tech support side of customer service?
It's the tech support side.
Okay.
So
Okay.
Nautilus was actually really good at separating out, unlike actually any company I've been with the tech support side, they have tiers of different calls you take.
hmm
So they start you off on the Bowflex, and you're taking the very easy power rod question over and over again, basically. And then you work your way up into the different models, even into their sleep system beds they had back in that day. And then you get to commercial. And so I skipped some of that because I actually sat down with one of their head COOs at the time. He was new and he wanted to sit with every role to see how everyone does their jobs. And after a day of sitting with me, he was like, this is not the position for you. I want to get you in something else. And I was like, well, what's that mean? And the next week I was working in service, learning about the technician side and loved it. And I've stayed with it now for 19 years.
Wow. Yeah, and that's a long time too. That is a long
Yep.
time. So how have things changed on the service side in all these years?
That's a tough one because there's some parts of me that says it hasn't changed at all.
Hmm.
And then there's just so much change at the same time. Um, I think some of it depends on the company and how they're running it, to be honest. But the technicians, it's been kind of fun to watch them all grow. You know, back then you had a lot of really just mom and pop shops that, you
Hmm.
know, the guy was out there doing all the job, and then his wife at nighttime would like submit the little invoices, and
Hmm.
you'd get them faxed over to you and everything. That was fun. To now you have, you know, these bigger companies that you guys have technicians. There's a lot more of the bigger companies, I guess, with multiple technicians than there are the mom and pops anymore. And so that itself has kind of been a learning change.
Yeah, and that's the interesting part too. So from your perspective, like what is considered a large company? Because again, I only know what I see, right? But you have the advantage of seeing, oh, this is how many technicians are calling in for them. This is how many states they're operating in. This is how many major urban areas they're doing. So, what is considered large to you guys now on the service side versus the mom and pop?
I would say the larger companies are the ones that have probably about 10 technicians.
Okay.
Um,
And are they usually dealers as well, or are they just simply ISPs?
simply technicians.
Hmm.
I personally find that the dealer ones still prioritize the sales side over service.
Hmm.
So, you know, I am still very old school. I like the service upfront people a little
Yeah.
bit more and stuff. But if they have about 10 technicians, that's a pretty big technician company. Um, and there's a lot more popular ones though that have about, you know, at least four technicians now. And there's
Hmm.
just a lot less of the one guys.
Yeah, yeah, and that's really what we want to at NAF to change over time is helping people grow out of being the mom and pop, the husband and wife team, the husband and daughter, the husband and I mean the father and son, whatever, and also more women. Definitely want to see more women in the field because the ones that I've seen and seen how they operate, I love how they operate. Um, they're a little less nail and hammer approach. I know darn well that I see the problem. That's the nail, and I'm the hammer, and it's not always the most successful approach to things. So
Yeah, in the 19 years, I will still admit my favorite technician was a girl named Jackie. She
mhm,
was up in Maine. She was the best, but it was also her tech notes. She had the prettiest handwriting, and I could always know what she was telling me was needed because you could read those notes. And she did it basically so she could retire in the Bahamas. So I'm sure by now she's well retired in the Bahamas, but like she was just the best to talk to because she was just like, you know, tech language is a little different sometimes on the phone.
yeah.
I think that's why I like it. You know, sometimes the conversations get a little rough and we're not meaning it to be. And so she was just like that, but she'd turn in those notes and I was like, okay, this is what's needed. Where there are still many times I am zooming in on my screen right now to read the handwriting to be like, okay, I think they're saying a motor here.
Yeah, and that's important. That's extremely important is understanding the value of communication. Um, I say all the time, and I try to get my staff and anyone I meet to understand that business begins and ends with communication, and it's all about that making sure that at least if I'm turning in notes to you, it's I told the story of what happened in a way that you understand what is needed. So obviously, you're good buddies with my COO Matt, and Matt writes, he double checks every single work order that comes through. That way, he catches misspelled words. He catches language that wasn't making sense because the tech is, writing on their phone and limited space might have been interrupted and talked to and then came back and realized that they just wrote the same thing three times or something, stuff like that. And I think that's what a lot of organizations that have the ability to grow figure out is I have to communicate clearly to you to get your respect, in as a manufacturer, as my whoever is overseeing my account on the manufacturer side. And I need that respect to have a good relationship, you know.
Hmm.
So that's good to know. That's interesting. Yeah, I want to bit back to Jackie. I wish Jackie then was still in our industry. Um,
Yeah, agreed.
we need more because and we just need more in the field. I see them in the office, and I'm seeing them more and more in the office as through Fix Your Gym and things like that. But we need them as techs. I think they just bring a certain rounded off edge, not as rough to
Mhm.
their approach. Us men, we're like Neanderthals, right? At the end of the day, I'm just a man, so it is what it is. All right, so Nautilus gets bought by Core. I guess that's how you end up over at Core. And didn't you end up heavily on the Stairmaster side of things, if I remember correctly?
So what actually happened is Nautilus sold Stairmaster.
Okay.
And so that's what they did is they sold off just the Stairmaster itself. And so they actually came over to my department, was like, hey, by the end of the year, you all will be out of jobs because we're selling this side off. Um, and then when the transaction actually happened, basically they were like, okay, you can have Stairmaster, all the equipment, manufacturing, all that. And I think it was like 5 employees. And there wasn't a choice.
Mm.
It was actually probably the funniest thing of my life. It was the weirdest transaction. I was like 20 years old. My boss came over, and you were not allowed to have your phones anywhere close to your desk. And he came over and he's like, "Hey, your phone's gonna ring. Go answer it and walk out to the hallway." And I was like, "What?" He's like, "Your phone's ringing. Go answer it and walk to the hallway." And sure enough, I picked my phone up out of my desk drawer and it's ringing. And I answered and walked out to the hallway, and it was Gary Pendleton, who at that time I'd worked with just a little bit here and there. And he's like, "Hey, I want to work with you. You're going to start working with Stairmaster as of Monday." And I'm pretty sure this was like a Thursday afternoon. And I was like, "Well, no, I've got this job." He's like, "No, when you get back, you'll have the address that you start. So have a good day." Like hangs up. It was less than like 5 minutes. I walked back to my desk just confused and was like, what just happened? And my boss was there with a box and a piece of paper. And he was like, pack up anything you want, your keyboard, anything. On Monday, here's the address you'll start working from. And I was like, do I have a choice? And he's like, yeah, you can have no job or you can keep working at Stairmaster. And Nautilus ended up actually was like they were my paycheck for like 2 more weeks.
Hmm.
And then it all of a sudden the paycheck started coming with the name Stairmaster on it, and then switched to Core from there. And we were at Stairmaster the next day, like the 2 days later, and it was this cute little like 7 people of us, and a few of them I knew, and most of them I didn't. And I started the service department for them.
Interesting. Interesting. So, wow, it's almost like getting bought and sold.
Yeah, I constantly tell people I felt like cattle. Like
Yeah,
I just didn't
yeah.
have a choice. I was bought with the company and moved over. And I mean, it was definitely the best decision but at the time I didn't feel like it was a decision I actually had, but it was an awesome opportunity, at least it turned out to be.
So when Stairmaster, whenever this was the beginning, did Core also own Star Trek and the other brands at that point?
Not
Because
at that
yeah, because this is like right when I'm starting. So my first I came in through the national service providers, which ugh, I was terrible,
point.
as we have just gone through a battle over, right? But I didn't know anything about anything because all I knew was iFit products, Icon products at the time, because that's all we did. So I didn't know. As I grew, I learned about other brands and stuff. So I didn't know when things started. All right, so it was just so Core started off with Stairmaster, and then added everybody else.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
I think we were about a year before we started adding, and that's when they really started promoting the core name.
Hmm.
But we were just Stairmaster. We did a big, huge rework where they actually took all of us from the office and went down to a warehouse and did a real fun snap ring rework um, on those 7,000 PTs that I love so much. And that's all we did for a very long time. And then they started buying and transitioning and turning into what they are now.
Okay. And so the whole time you've been in the Seattle, Vancouver region, right? You've not had to move for these jobs, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Well, that's convenient at least.
Very
You
much
know.
so. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So you ended up staying there from 2010 to 2015. Um,
Yep.
what what made the transition to iFit?
Um, the leadership changed at Core,
Yeah.
and they let go my supervisor, who was Patrick Banning at that time. And I still think he's probably one of the best bosses I've had. And the new manager came in. He was from overseas. He's still a great guy. But his boss just started kind of changing the direction of how everything was going, and I did not agree with it.
Hmm.
And was struggling a lot. They really wanted. I don't think they do anymore, but at the time they were kind of trying to treat the technicians more as employees than partners. And I didn't like the transition. So Patrick Banning actually called me up and was like, "Come move to Utah." And I was like, "No, Utah's cold." And I told him no several times. And after a few months, he was like, "Okay, fine, work from home and work for me." And I said, "Deal." And moved over to I moved over to Free Motion
Hmm.
first and did Free Motion until COVID. And then they were nice enough, since Free Motion wasn't working at the time, to switch me over to iFit.
Okay. I've never met Patrick. Um, Heard his name, but that's all I know about him.
Great guy.
There's a lot of people that have been around in the industry for a long time, and unless they're forward facing, you just don't ever get a chance to meet them or know how they are influencing what's happening
Right. Yeah.
and whatnot. And I can't agree with that. So I remember in 2014, 2015, yeah, really having an email come back to us where I was trying to stand our ground with Core over some stuff, and I had my head served to me on a plate, you know, and it was just like, okay. And that was a very tough year for us. I remember that. Um, they had disappeared, Core had disappeared, but also Heartline was coming into my territory. Dealers trump ISPs more
Mhm.
often than not if they're new to a territory. We had lost LA Fitness has a whopping 3 locations within inside of the Carolinas. They brought in a tech who was going to either move to Charlotte and just leave LA Fitness, or they were like, "Oh, hey, we by the chance we can use you." So, yeah, interesting time in 2015, if I remember correctly. Um, so you end up at Free Motion, and you're there for a while. So you're showing up. God, man, you're right at the precipice of Orange Theory really getting legs. So
Yes.
what was that like?
It was intimidating at first, because I got kind of used to the core life, where yeah, you have Gold's Gym and 24, but they're all very relaxed compared. So then you switch over to Orange Theory, who's just, they're intense workouts and they are intense people in general. And, that was a different role, but it was also amazing because it was Free Motion, such a small little group of people that, that was my favorite part about when we started Stairmaster. It was just a small little group. Everybody knew everybody and what we were doing, and Free Motion felt that same way. So, if you got overwhelmed, you knew you could just tap on somebody and get the help. So, and the technicians seem to really hate and love Orange Theory at the same time, because they hate those tight time schedules, but they love that they can bust out 5 machines in a quick time frame too. So it was just a really like nice environment to like kind of get back into, where everyone was knowing that they were willing to help each other.
Yeah. The one thing I always appreciate with free motion was that at the beginning, it was the same model of who's the closest ISP. That's who we're gonna assign it to whoever's closest. And then over time, it was like, no, those who really do the work and will meet the needs of Orange Theory, you sort of rule the roost at that point in time, you know. And I recently I'm leaving a territory and I'm handing over 5 clubs to someone who has been a service tech for 18 plus years. But he came and he trained with me the other weekend at Orange Theory, and it was like drinking from a fire hose. The reality is, it's just 2 pieces of equipment. It's a treadmill and it's a water rower,
Right.
but they're unique. It's a unique environment,
Mhm.
and that uniqueness. It's not that well. It is more unique now, but the first unique thing is you're working in a time window. Period. You're not going to be in that studio when class starts. I do know service technicians where the manager will say, "Go fix it," but none of us want to be in the studio when they're working out. Partly because you can't think.
You're right with that music.
It is way too loud because Orange Theory is designed that you don't think, you
Mhm.
just do. But as a technician trying to work under that kind of volume, it's just like, ooh, it. And if I mean, you can't hear the machine, you can't hear anything it's doing. But the other thing is too is the original platform, LEDs and whatnot. It had really become a okay. We started off horrible because the very first platform was not designed to take the punishment of what Orange Theory does.
Yeah.
Um, Workout after workout after workout after workout. Um, the next platform really became a workhorse. Amazing piece of equipment. You could beat those things to death, and by the time we switched to the newest platform, what we changed a incline motor every once in a while. We change a belt in the deck just because it's wore out, but otherwise we weren't fixing much after that. The occasional console insert.
Yeah.
Now they've gotten so sophisticated with 2 software systems on them that it's like drinking from a fire hose trying to figure out what's actually happening today. And I think we'll eventually get there, but we are 5 years in to this new platform. 6 years. Did it come out in 2019 or 2020?
I want to say it was the end of 19.
Okay, let's just call it, we're going into our 6th year. And because it's 2 softwares sitting on top of each other, we're having problems still. But for him, it was like drinking from a fire hose, just simply off of one treadmill, and
Yeah.
also how to do a quick and easy PM. But we really did appreciate that, and we wish there was more of that kind of loyalty style in the industry. Um, Maybe not as tight. I understand it can't be as tight as what a Orange Theory is, because a Gold's Gym doesn't need to wait at all, or a Planet Fitness or whatever. But all right. So you end up there. What was it like to go from commercial to residential?
It was hard.
That's a whole nother animal. You would think it'd be simple.
Yeah, it was one of those transitions that, I'd been in commercial side long enough that I forgot what the residential people were like. And it was it was a really rocky transition for me because I got in the mindset that, that customer would call up and they just, want that technician tonight at their house. And I'm like, who are you? You're one little person. Like, and it was like, okay, I need to get out of that mindset.
Yeah.
Um, and my supervisor at the time, she was great to help me do the transition because I was like, it had just been too long. And I was sure that the moment free motion said to come back, I would go running over there and get back to my commercial world. But I found a niche and just got comfy, I guess, and was like, residential's not so bad. You just do need to remember they're a little different, and their scheduling is actually harder because you can't just look online and see what their opening availability is like you can with Orange Theory and stuff.
Yeah.
That's the main approach that I kind of realized that a lot of the managers in the residential side don't think of. So when they start focusing on all those stats and things, they're not thinking about, well, how often are you actually home to let somebody come repair something at your house? Like,
Hmm.
and so I really try to focus on that. And I think that's why I started really enjoying it, is trying to figure out how I can work with both sides.
Yeah, none of us want to take time off to meet. It's one thing, the plumber or the electrician. I talk about this all the time with our staff. The plumber, you want that faucet to turn on, you want to flush your toilet, you want to take a shower, you will make the time. Electricity, obviously, you want your lights on, your heat on, your AC to work, all that kind of stuff. But in the fitness space, as important as it is, you don't want to take off work for it. You don't want to. And for us as a service company, ma'am, sir, this is when I'm available. Take it or leave it. And sometimes those metric those aren't always going to transpose onto a spreadsheet very well that we're
Yeah.
doing a good job.
Yeah, I've had several conversations with customers being like, okay, you really want this technician out, but you need to work with them to have
Mhm.
time for them. Because I was like, if this is so important to you, you will make the time for the technician to come out and fix it before it becomes a clothing rack.
Also, in the commercial space, you do not find a treadmill in a closet.
Mm.
You know, that was our conversation this week about space and what to do, and for the front office for us to start asking better questions. I had an incline trainer in a closet, and that's not cool. You know, I'm sorry, because you got to flip that thing up on its end to work on it, or turn it on its side. Um, Interesting. Yeah, I bet
when
that is hard. I bet that is
when
hard.
I
It's
work, sorry.
no, so how do you guys go through and train as the service techs then? Like what does training look like for you guys today, right? Because I pretty much know that when from talking to people that've been around for a while, that when it was the earlier days when you guys would often have equipment very close by to especially in the strength side and stuff like that. But over the years, how has your training on your end happen? I mean, how are you taught to actually understand what you're telling us on the phone?
I mean, each company's done it differently, but not. I mean, Nautilus has a full team of people. I think it's like, or at least it used to be three people when they were open. That you would go down. And they had a classroom with the machines, and you sat there and learned each section. And then they had a
Hmm.
whole different teacher for the software side, and then a different teacher for the actual like computer system to dispatch you guys on. And that was a great, I think, almost like a 2 month process. Like it was very detailed and probably one of the best ways I've learned from a company. Then you switch over to other companies where they just bring in a trainer and you sit in and do training. Then you have iFit that they actually have you sit at the technician's training and learn the machines that way. And then you do a little bit more with like Dennis on the side or somebody to do just a little more detailed stuff. Um, and then you have, brand new companies that, are still trying to figure it out and send you a machine.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, okay, so you bring up Stepper, so you're now at Stepper. If I'm correct, Stepper showed up on the radar going on 2 years ago ish.
um, 2.5 years, I think they're
Yeah,
approaching 3 years in the US.
yeah. And so are you literally the first person to really start working on service as a whole for them to like turn it into a department?
Technically, yes. They did try once before, but they just weren't there yet.
Hmm.
The groundwork got started and got erased basically. So I am mostly starting it from the ground up.
So how do you do that? What's that look like, for a manufacturer? Because luckily, I think you have two models, right? And then you have a treadmill and a rower.
So we have about six different steppers,
Okay, okay,
mostly all residential, and then two models that are more commercial based.
okay. For some reason,
And
I
then
felt like I was looking at something. Maybe it's another brand.
it
It's
happened.
it
Um,
happened.
and then our treadmill is going out actually beginning of December. We'll start showing up in the field. It's a like a tread sled.
Is that online right now?
Yes, it's a tread
That's what I
XL.
saw then. Okay, okay.
And then a little later in December will be a new line of bikes, rowers, tread sleds
Do you keep the
coming
name
up.
Stepper at that point in time? Who
Yes,
knows? Okay,
that's what I'm told.
okay.
It is all
Uh,
the stepper VPRs. I'm really excited actually to get to learn those machines because I like I said, I'm just an old school person. Like I am so excited to work with these steppers because the Stairmaster machines were my favorite to always work on with my hands at least. And so to work with a like machine is exciting, but the VPR line is a lot like in my description the Airdyne bike because you have the fans and
mhm.
I feel like those were a lot simpler to work with and a little more easier to find at least what the issue was.
Yeah.
So these all have our fan based or manual based driven, and so I'm excited to get my hands on those and start learning about them.
So, but as you build out this new service department, what do you do? I mean, because you're more or less starting from scratch. So how do you go, okay, here's where like okay, I know how I'm going to build out a service department now, right? If I had to start all over again, what do you take out of all these years and go, okay, this is our base. We have to do this first, and then we do this, and then we do this. What does that look like for you on your end?
Yeah, that's what's been so exciting about this is I literally just kind of took a little knowledge from each company and really, hopefully you guys saw it when I sent out service agreements, been trying to listen to the technicians of what they have been wanting to. That's still obviously beneficial for my company. So, I started off first and was like, what do you guys got? They had this little list. It was pretty cute of like 15 technicians they knew of. And I was like, all right, let me pull together the companies I've loved working for and reached out to all of them. And then I was like, hey, we need to get a service agreement because they didn't have one. And I was like, we need to cover both sides for the techs and ours. And I mean, I've already realized in this time frame that I need to add a few things into the service agreement, but it's still at least covers bases for both sides. Um, and really pressed to the upper management here. I was like, the relationship with the technicians is what is key. To me, if you have a really good relationship with your technician, the communication is going to be better. And they're going to see, if they're treated well, they'll start prioritizing you over some of the other people and stuff. Because I've never been for the national service providers. I've been there, done that so many times. It's never worked out. I like the, smaller to mid-size companies because there is that way to build that relationship. When you get those bigger companies, you don't get that relationship. You're just another ticket in their inbox. So, that's my main focus is getting those relationships going. Um, and then building a training program for everybody. That's like my next goal to do and start doing maybe some kind of portal or something to make it a little easier for the techs. Um, but you just got to kind of start and see what's the prime things and take advice. I've sent out a few emails now to technicians that have done several jobs to be like, hey, if there's something you would like to see training on first, what would it be? just so that way we're getting that feedback back and forth, so that way you guys don't think we're just sending you work and ignoring you, basically.
Hmm. It's a lot. It's a lot to think of. And I think you're almost it's one of those things you're only hampered by how fast those around you can move as well. And so yeah, you really got to rely on that team, and a team that goes, okay, the quickest way to success is to do A, B, C, D, and we believe in this. But if you got a team that goes, no, I think B's first, no, I think C's first, or whatever, then it gets really hard.
Yeah.
Um, and I think that's sort of what was happening at the end of your iFit days, right? As the team started to go in different directions, and God bless Andy for being as brave as he was to say the things that he did, but I think in the long run, I'm hoping, you I'm hoping, but he publicly, what he said,
Yeah.
um, I'm hoping that what they'll realize is the things that he did and said stop them from driving off a cliff accidentally. Because me and you, we've been around to see that happen. I was part of the problem at one time, and I know I was because I was never trained because I came through an ISP. I mean, excuse me, an NSP. Here, go do the work. Well, how do this, and this is again before YouTube and other ways to learn. There was no documents online. The manufacturers didn't have hardly anything to send you. You know, so yeah. Um, so how big's your team now?
The service side is, well, the tech support side, there's three people.
Okay,
Um, and then there's me for dispatching, and the warehouse is me.
okay. And where's the warehouse for you guys?
The parts warehouse is here in Vancouver, Washington.
Oh, that's perfect.
I just opened it
Oh,
in September. Yeah. Yeah, we had it down in California with the machine, with the whole goods,
uh-huh.
and um, needed a little more hands-on.
Yeah.
So Stepper was like, "Hey, can you peek around for some warehouses?" And I now run a warehouse in Vancouver, Washington.
Now, where is actual home base for Stepper? Because I know they're overseas. What country or where are they coming
Australia.
from? Australia?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. That is not what I expected. I was expecting you to tell me something Asian, you know? Now, are they popular elsewhere?
Yeah, actually, I was just learning that. I'll admit I've only done my research in the US, but actually this week we meet weekly with Australia, and I was learning that the other parts of our brands, like the bikes and rowers that we're
Mhm.
getting ready to have were already launched over and are really popular, I guess, like over in like England and just all around down there. So they did it like backwards, I guess, and they're just getting the steppers here shortly, and then we're getting the other. But the steppers are huge in Australia right now,
Okay.
from my understanding.
Interesting. It's I can't think of another fitness brand that we even have that has Australian roots.
Yeah, it was different for me.
Yeah.
I was actually just training the Australia team for iFit at the very end there, and dealing with that time zone and training was rather life changing for a little bit because I had to keep rearranging,
Hmm.
parenting life and stuff to train them. So when they brought up this one, they were like, "Okay, well, it's in Australia," and I was just like, "Oh no, how much do I have to work with Australia time zones?" And they're like, "Oh, just once a week," and I was like, "Oh, cool, we're good." Like,
So how did you end up finding the opportunity with Stepper? You know,
uh,
did you just start calling everybody?
kind of. I did start, poking. I'll be honest, I had a very big discussion with myself first of deciding if I wanted to stay in the fitness world.
Hmm.
After that long, I left iFit feeling very defeated, very unheard, and I wasn't sure if I wanted to stay in the fitness world. But a few technicians reached out to me directly, and were really really nice and appreciative, and were like, we always felt like you listened and were at least trying for us.
Yeah.
And that made me feel a lot better because that was my goal. Is I was hoping that they didn't feel like I just did whatever the head bosses said to do. So they were like, "We want to keep you in the industry," and I was like, "Oh, maybe I'll poke." And then the amazing Alex Castro came along and was like, "Hey, I have something for you," and he connected me to Stepper, and I chatted up with them, and we made an agreement.
Alex Castro of all people. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Very cool. I mean, as
Yeah.
long as you get there, right? That's all that matters. And and that's the thing too. There are people that we don't want to see go away, right? And but you said something right there that's important, that if there's any industry leaders listening to this, right, is we out here on the front lines need to know that we have support and someone listening to the battle that we're fighting for you, on top of trying to run a business. It is for us, but at the same time too, we're trying to represent you. And when you're not listening, when you're making it hard, when you're sending your call centers overseas, and I'm realizing I'm talking to someone that has 2 weeks of paperwork training and doesn't really know what a treadmill is, and they're being hard to deal with so I can take care of your customer, maybe that's not the right decision. And maybe, we should have conversations around as a community on how we can all help each other.
Yeah, I'm still very big on there should be different call centers for residential, the customers, and then there needs to be a different level for the technicians to call in on. And some companies I've worked with figured that out. Some of them haven't.
Yeah.
And but I've never ran a giant company, so I'm not going to go into the logistics of why they do what they do. But you know, um, listening to your employees is huge,
Yeah.
and especially that's what I kind of put myself as, though, is my job is not just to listen to my company, it's to listen to the technicians and find a happy ground for both of you guys.
Yeah.
And that's really what, like, I think my role is making sure you guys and the other guys connect together and find a happy medium.
Why do you think that might not exist in other places? I mean, because you just sort of went through that, right? They bring in someone who's like, oh, I've done this X, Y, and Z, but they didn't do X, Y, and Z here. Or maybe they did X, Y, and Z in our industry, but they don't want to listen. What do you think that is?
I just being big headed. I don't think a company can run if they don't listen to their employees. Like I said, that boss that sat with me at Nautilus back in the day to understand each role, like, I think that's really important. You should know what each employee in your job does.
Mhm.
And for him to do that, and I wasn't the only one. He moved several people in the company around that he sat with, actually being like, "You will probably excel better in this position." Like, that's an amazing trait to have,
Yeah.
to understand your company and your employees. And I think some companies hire people who just think they know what to do and that's just the way to do it. And they don't actually want to listen to the people under them to help the company. I Stepper is still really new. It's been a lot of fun and a lot of learning, so much learning. But they have already implemented where we're all showing each other what we're doing for jobs, not to take over, but so that way everyone understands the different roles. And I think that's great. That's how it should be, so everyone can help and listen to each other. And they're very open to hearing communication. And so far, it's been nice that I've felt that they've not only listened to me, but when they maybe don't understand, they ask the right questions to understand and then help me understand their side of things. And, unfortunately, some of the bigger companies don't hire people that want to go both ways and listen and respond.
No, that's gold. That's gold for any business, right? Uh, Again, for those who are listening, um, if you're the owner, if you are management, or if you're having team meetings, it's good to essentially cross train where you show each other how each other functions. Because then what that does is it also creates the human connection across the job. And so no one becomes an island. Like, you don't know what I do. Yeah, yeah, I do. And I'm trying not to cause you problems. Or, okay, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cause you that problem. Um, we used to do that on our weekly meetings here at work, is where we would, it's probably time to actually do it again because we've got some new people, and it's just like, okay, this is what happens when the phone rings, and this is the flow of how everything gets to you. Office, this is what the service tech has to do. And by the way, the service technician is not working off of this big screen, they're working off of this phone.
Right? Yeah.
And while you have um, essentially some of the same data, they don't see it the same way. And that's why you're being asked to create a work order that looks this way so that certain data is prevalent
Mhm.
for the service technician. Not, because again, you got a big screen. And some of them, I mean, most of us, and I'm going to presume there's a chance you have two or three screens sitting in front of you, you know, as my wife likes to call it, NASA. When you get NASA in front of you, it's a completely different experience when you're working off of a phone.
Yeah,
Um,
and prime examples, one of our tech support people, she'll send me over some information, and I finally sat her down and was like, "Hey, why don't I show you how I pick out my technician and see what to do?" Because she would leave off an address and be like, "I'm still getting that, but can you work on finding a technician?" And I finally had to be like, "Okay, that's kind of the key thing I need first before I
yeah,
can find you a technician." Because, but she's, you know, newer and doesn't understand the states very well either, I don't think. And I mean, she's the sweetest girl and stuff. But when she was like, saw that I need, I have a map I use and stuff, she was like, "Oh, okay. So
yeah,
like this is why you need that info." And I was like, "Yeah, like I can see like, okay, maybe that just thinks a silly thing, but without her knowing what I do, it's not as important to her to give me some of the information." And it made sense to me to, once we sat down together, she's like, "Okay, I get why you need this info now." And I see that battle between technicians and secretary office people all the time. Is the secretary's like, "Well, I don't know, they want it, so just give it to me," but they don't understand why the technician maybe doesn't have the serial number, or, you know, it's those little things sometimes that cracks me up. But once they sit and talk to each other, like, "Oh, okay, I see why." And maybe the tech can put in the notes, serial number scratched off, and then the office lady won't push back and keep sending on the info. So it's just helpful for everyone to know what everyone's doing, and not on like a deep level, just an oversight view and stuff like that. But it just makes the communication, I feel like, between everybody a lot more understanding. Because I mean, you start talking sales to me and you're talking over my head. I've never understood the sales world. I don't
mhm,
want to. It's their own breed of people. I mean, I bring people with me when I go car shopping because I'm like, I know they're going to talk over my head because I am not a salesperson. But understanding the difference of why do we have salespeople that talk to customers and talk to, you know, dealers and gyms, I was like, it's the same thing. It's not the same thing. It's very different lingo. And without sitting with people, I didn't understand that.
yeah. I think the one thing that we should really work towards as an industry, and it's becoming less and less for sure. But for the longest time, salespeople were driving service. In a way, just they were making promises that we couldn't keep because their job is to get people to say yes and to like them. And the reality is the long-term relationship is to be honest and making sure that your team can back you up in what you're saying. Um,
Oh
and
yeah,
I,
you can ask any of the salespeople at the other companies, and if you were asking them like, "What service person did you like least?" I probably was the answer, because I push back the most on salespeople because for a long time they didn't listen and didn't understand. Oh, a technician can't just drop everything and be there in 10 minutes, and no, they're not going to work on Thanksgiving to fix your machine.
yeah,
But there are definitely some salespeople out there be like, "Oh, it's fine, they'll do it."
yeah, I know. We definitely have had our fair share of ones that come through and they feel more like a taker than a giver or a mutual, partner. And so all you salespeople out there who may be listening to this conversation, be a partner to us. Actually ask, can you? Don't tell us, can you? By chance, are you available to, you know, and you will get a better response from your service provider. It's, every once in a while you come in hot, we get it. We get it. We understand. But when it's consistent, no, you don't understand us. I'm blessed in our organization that we can start saying no. Sorry, no, because it's also a give and a take. What are we getting back out of this? Just more of you coming back and asking, or promising the world to someone that we're not getting anything from. So anyhow, I get it. I get it. So what do we have to look forward to um from you, like in Stepper? Like what's what's 2026 gonna be? You know, because truthfully is when you switched over and you reached out and said, "Hey, I want to work with you," um, everyone was happy. And especially because you didn't also come and try to lowball pricing either, which was important to us, extremely important. So what does 2026 look like? What's this new, what's your plan?
I'm still writing it. I'm
Hmm.
still writing. But that was the important part is when, I went to the company, I was like, okay, we need service agreements with set rates. Like right now, they were, sending out and just being like, what would you charge us? And, I was like, with set rates, like you can usually negotiate and, like get at least a more middle ground for sure. But I was like, some of these companies were definitely overcharging because they didn't know the company and I understood. So, my goal is just to, know, I definitely paid a little bit more, but that's to show you and trust you, like show I trust you guys, you can trust us and help, you know, get our stuff done. But, with these new machines coming out, we're going to get a little busier and I'm excited and I'm just really focused on building those relationships to learn our machines and get them fixed, obviously as quick as possible. We're really aiming for the commercial world this year, coming year.
Oh,
So,
really?
yes. So I'm excited about that. So we'll be doing a little bit more. And I think a lot of technicians will get excited that they'll maybe get more commercial work than the residential, because I know residential isn't a lot of technicians' favorites. But my main goal is to just really work on those relationships so that way those customers do get help. And I really need to focus on training. Your company especially actually has worked on 4 times on one machine here. We just got it fixed and I was excited that what I suggested was a fix. I was like, woo. But that shows us right there that we need some more training to better understand. So that's kind of my main goal is to try to figure out where do we start on the training, not only for our side of the company because we should have caught that sooner, but obviously for the technicians. So that's where I'm leaning towards. I want to try to get information out about the new machines to the technicians before they start seeing them, so that way they can start, poking around and seeing what maybe could be potential issues coming up and stuff. But it's a small company, so how fast things will happen, some of the things are happening really fast. Like the parts warehouse thing that we did, like I thought would take a while, and I think that conversation of start of looking at a warehouse and me having it set up was maybe 2 months.
Wow.
Uh, yeah, it was really quick. It's been really fun. I've never ran a warehouse before, so
That's a whole
um,
nother animal now, isn't it?
it is. I'm gonna be buff by the end of this time frame.
Well, and just knowing where everything is. I mean, it's you think that keeping up with where your ISPs are and what's happening, right? Try to keep it. The more parts you get, the more line items you got in that inventory of yours, you better be on point.
Yeah, and I mean, I did a silly thing where I was like, "Oh, well, these parts are the same, so they should just be all together." And then, unfortunately, 2 technicians got the wrong part because I was like, they were too close together, and I
Mhm.
didn't realize that, this step shaft and this step shaft were half an inch different in size. So I was like, "Okay, well, let's move these so that way that's less likely to happen." So, I've rearranged it a few times, but it's been
Now,
fun.
are you or so okay, so I'm getting to the point in size where I need to well, we've needed to inventory our excess parts forever, right? I would think that you would set up your warehouse by model of machine, i.e., this row is this model, this is this model, this is that model, and in that way you don't actually get two step shafts that are half inch off from each other mixed. Is that sort of what you do, or what has been the approach, being that you're figuring it out as you go?
I'm stumbling. I'm not probably doing it the easiest way. I started at first, like the smaller parts are done by machine type, but gratefully, a lot of our parts are interchangeable
Mhm.
until you get to the commercial unit, basically. So, the commercial units are further back because they are bigger and clunkier. But I put, the heavier parts also towards the front of the warehouse. So I'm not having to carry those 47-pound brake assemblies from the back of the warehouse to the front to ship it out. So I've kind of adjusted it that way right now while I'm trying to learn a little bit more.
Yeah.
But then the rest of the shelves in are they are, this is this machine, this is this machine, and then going back. And then I just set up some new shelves for the new product coming in. So it might change again. We'll see. But I'll be getting some help, looking at hiring somebody for help here in the near future too. So that'll be exciting and fun. So I do have two different focuses right now for 2026 is the parts and managing those, and then the service technician side. But like I said, my main goal for 2026 is just really building that relationship and making sure they feel heard, and trying to figure out how to get the best training I can get for them. Obviously not the best because they already got hired somewhere else, but trying to find out,
Mhm.
that middle ground of finding the right training and stuff too.
Yeah, that's enough. That really is enough. I mean, because I mean, when you're at the beginning of it all feels monstrous, you know. And how
And
do
the nice
you?
part is the technicians are really understanding that we are a newer company, so they're not expecting, what they expect out of iFit or Matrix and stuff like that too. So that is
Yeah,
nice.
uh, yeah, and what the frustrating thing in the world of iFit, is that there's a constant new machine, and so you're always like, just trying to figure out something new, and or where did they move this component to? The example being is this newer style, whatever this the style, the Z style that you have in back behind you there, right? That upper control board is moved to three different places, and why did it keep moving? What actually the best spot I ever made sense is on the back end of the console because it's easy access. It's been behind the console. It's been to the side underneath the front panel. It's been now in the center. Well, why did it go to the center behind the stop key? It's just weird things like that, right? But again, we think about things as technicians and easy access and trying to get in and out and stuff, and but also that easy access too means that we don't accidentally damage plastics, um, and do things accidentally because, well, we're trying to weasel our way through tight spots because the treadmill is in a closet.
Yeah, when in the Stairmaster days, I had a game for the technicians that whoever could find the weirdest thing inside a step mill, and I had like little funny prizes I would mail out. And that was, just to add some entertainment into the days. And lately I've been thinking, I was like, man, I really need to do like the funniest location you found the machine, because, I saw one the other day that they literally had it on the landing of the steps. And I was like, I would be so scared to even try to run on that machine in general, because I'm like, I'm kind of a clumsy person. I'm like, you'd be taking a tumble down the stairs if you slip off of it wrong. Like, not even thinking of the technician side of it, just the logistics of working out on it. So, but it is hilarious how many customers will think like, "What? You can't fix that right there? Like, why not?"
Yeah, the engineering stuff that happens, and then the spaces that we get put into. I've never understood with Stairmaster where the circuit board is located. It's not facing the technician.
Yeah,
So why? It just rotating that gives me access. When you give me access, then I don't have to take anything apart unnecessarily. By the way, step rods break, the nuts get stuck, other things get missing, blah, 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 blah. You want me to do electrical tests? Then turn it to where I can access it, please. You know, thank God though that the design of where circuit boards and everything else has changed is you guys have a stepper. Talking about easy access, just pull off the
I
back
love that
end.
panel.
Yeah, it's just right there.
Yeah.
Um, well, good deal, good deal. So you've got many years of experience doing this, right? I mean, you've started from the very bottom. You got 19 years of working your way up to the ranks. What needs to change now? What is the new future of what does good customer service look like in the eyes of Tabetha after all these years? What are the tools that all the manufacturers need to be figuring out to be rock stars in the next 5 years?
That is not an easy question.
Well, this isn't a place to have easy answers.
Um, Gosh, I don't know. I really, I want to see more local training and people, shall we say?
Mhm.
Um, and it's just it falls back to that listening thing, I guess, really. Even some of the tech support stuff, if you're actually listening to the person calling in to understand what the issue is, it can be so much quicker than sometimes just be like, oh, it's a clunking noise. Okay, here's a motor. Like, no, let's take our time. And that's, I think a lot of companies are losing focus of, because they want to get off that phone quicker, get that part shipped out quicker. And sometimes we need to remember that we should slow down and maybe take the longer phone calls and troubleshooting. Um, but that's life in general too, though. I feel like everybody's just in such a rush all the time these days. And I'm definitely guilty of calling into, customer cares for things and trying to rush through it. So, I can't expect it to happen overnight, but I really think a lot of companies just need to stop and slow down a little bit more to get to the end goal, and it will be a better end goal. At the end of the day, I don't want just the customer happy. I want the technician happy with the job as well, and I want us happy with the, you know, results of it. Um, so, just slowing down and communicating so that way people have the proper training and listening skills.
So if I were to say the one thing that I wish so many places would have, and it's because everyone wants video, right? Of proof. And the reality is after about 10 seconds of video on your phone is about the max that you're going to be able to email, right? Um, and so you're trying to pare down these videos that you can't tell the story properly, you know? So as you're building out your service side, be asking your ownership that we need a portal that they can dump larger file videos. And by larger files, 20 second, I mean, we need to be able to get up to, what is it? It's 20 megabytes for email. So my software will allow us to get to 50 megabytes that we need close, and that's only like 20 to 30 seconds. We need to be able to get a minute's worth of video to you guys because we want to tell the story behind it,
Okay.
you know? And I don't know how that gets done, but it's like, a form of a Dropbox that's built in or is easily accessible to people, or that you can send a link to. Sort of like how you send a link to, your Google, Drive, right? It's the same principle behind it. Um, because I think often what gets lost in translation is these shorter videos or pictures, and then you're asking someone to write, but they don't quite know how to communicate properly. Or there's a sound that you can't get unless you have a length of context to hear the change. You know, I think personally the ability for software and tools that are now at our fingertips will truly change service when
Hmm.
harnessed properly. I
Agreed.
think I think when the phone rings, you need to have an AI assistant that answers the phone with you, right? And then what they're doing is they're listening. And then they start pulling your service documents forward to you, right? As you are talking, and it's listening, going, oh, they're talking about XYZ, and it pulls this forward, or documents forward. Now, maybe not so much for a stepper that does not have as much at this point in time. But if we are talking about a core, a matrix, a pre-core with massive skews of documents, you know, anything that assists that person. And then the goal is we get rid of these overseas because we have such faster American service, and then that American service department is sitting in a space where they're constantly putting their hands on new pieces of equipment, right? And that speeds them up. And when it speeds them up and they're able to send things quickly and whatnot, and have to fumble through whatever the software tree is that you guys are using, um, you just have an assistant. It's assistant. Just look at it as that. So the assistant that listens and is handing you notes is along the way.
Hmm.
And I think we're almost there, if not there. I don't know what that costs. I got no idea what that costs. But what is the cost of for service people that don't do a good job in your call center for a year, 2 years, and aren't going to get much better than what they are because they're in a call center versus being in your call center where they can put their hands on things. Because I have a strange notion that these call centers that have gone to the Philippines and other places, these people never touch equipment. They Zoom for equipment, they watch videos, but they never interact with the equipment. And that's a difference. Um, Octane was great forever because their service technicians, even when the company sold and went around, eventually ended up at True, the same service technicians stayed. You know, um, your your technicians that you've had in tech support have been, the ones have long term become really good, you know. But again, when we send them overseas and it's just a call center job, they're never going to be good, you know. The people down in Latin America right now that are with iFit and Free Motion, they're getting there, but it's taken them a couple of years now, you know. And I just think it's just the way I think it's the future is thinking about artificial intelligence and the way it can pull files. It's called a RAG system. Um, I can't remember what it's called. It's essentially it just works through a filing cabinet system, which is the future of what every service department needs to be looking at. You but again, that video portal would make all the difference in the world right off the bat.
Yeah, I wrote it down. That's a good
Yeah,
idea.
yeah. Because imagine if I can say, hey, and talk you through the context of what I'm doing versus trying to write it out. Writing it out I might lose a lot in there because I suck at writing. I really do. That's why I got a Matt. He tells me all the time, yeah, I got to read Scott, you know, and, and whatnot. So, and again, and then the autocorrect gets me, or if I'm doing talk to text and enters in other things, I'm like, oh, whatever,
Talk to text and me are not friends.
you know. And if you get talk to text for those of us in the South, oh my gosh, some of the things that we say, um, should not be written. Um, well, good deal. How can we, how can NAFTA and Stepper have the best relationship possible? Like, what do you want to see out of us?
I mean, right now I'm liking what I'm seeing. Each member, I think I've talked to most of you guys already. Um, it's just been great with communication. Dan's given me a few tips of things that, they'd like to see, and talking to Matt and you quite often and stuff. So, that's what I'm looking for, is just a little advice on what they would like, what you guys would like to see on our side of things.
Yeah.
Um, can't get it all overnight, but if I can get goals to get towards that for you guys, like, then I know that you guys are willing to help us too. So
But what do you want to see us do?
nothing new right now. Like I said, you
Okay.
guys are um,
Okay. Because
communicative, and I appreciate the feedback and stuff.
yeah, because for us, we just simply we want to make sure that we are helping our colleagues become better and that we become better in the process, right? None of us are perfect. We're just figuring this thing out as we go, you know. But we want to make sure that we're creating better industry standards as quality of work standard, um, and really putting some bumper cars because there are becoming less mom and pops, but there still are mom and pops out there that are working off of just pen and paper. And pen and paper is a dangerous way to run your business right now in the speed of today's economy. And it also will hamper you in um, your profitability and things like that. But we want to make sure that everyone understands what a preventive maintenance truly is. And we do everything that the manufacturers tell us we should be doing in a preventive maintenance? No, we would be there for 3 hours on one piece of equipment. But we should have some standards of what gets done. And it's up to the club to do the rest or the homeowner to do the rest. Um, Teaching homeowners, knowing to teach homeowners, the very first things you should be saying, at least in my eyes, is, "Hey, I would not be doing doing you right if I didn't tell you this. This treadmill is in a garage, and it's not meant to be in the garage. You could void your warranty. Why would you? Can you void your warranty? All they got to do is find the slightest bit of rust, and then the conversation can start. All right. Why? Well, why is that? Because the garage, you're not controlling the environment. As soon as you open that door, you're letting in dust and debris. Um, you're not keeping it air conditioned, so you're not controlling humidity, things like that. Humidity is the devil, and it causes gremlins between that and dust. We don't know why things break down. But getting service companies to be willing to say things that might feel uncomfortable. Most residential customers don't know to maintain their equipment at all. That's the one thing I want to see change, actually. Bring the maintenance information up to the very front of all manuals.
Oh yeah.
And it's because it's the simple things of, um, we'll just use treadmills, right? You need to lubricate your treadmill belt for residential as long as you still have that. I want to develop a belt I want to go maintenance free on the residential space as well. Because they're starting to use them in other countries. PVC, cheaper belts, but still using the maintenance-free undercoatings. Um, but lubricating, cleaning and vacuuming, it should all be at the very front end of a manual, big and bold, right? Or this is what really voids your warranty, not small print, because it feels like it's a game.
What I think, like, I don't know how buying cars in your state works, but when I buy a brand new car and stuff, when I go pick it up, they actually set up an appointment where they sit with me and like show me all the features of the car.
Hmm.
And usually they kind of go over a very small little warranty, like don't do this thing. And I've always thought that's super helpful because I'm not going to go sit at home. At least I'm not the type to read through that giant manual to find out all the little buttons in my car. Um, and I've always thought that that was a great idea that should be done when you buy a machine. Like just schedule a little 15-minute call. You don't have to be in person to show the buttons, but go over some tricks and tips about the machine and go over like this is a way to make the product last longer for you and do this. Um, it's a great idea to do.
What if you did it as a QR code right on the cover of your step mill that says, before operation, scan this and learn about your machine. Learn how to adequately take care of your machine, right? And then you make a video for each specific model
Yep.
that covers the how to for that specific model. And at least you've done your due diligence. And it talks about, hey, if your stuff's in the garage and it starts to rust, we're not going to warranty it. If the technician sends us pictures and it looks like there's a forest inside of your motor hood, we're not going to warranty it because you didn't do what was necessary on your side of this agreement. Because it's like driving the car, you never change your oil, right? It's the same principle. You got to do your part for us to do our part. And the homeowner never knows what really their part is because they don't read the manuals.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a lot. It just looks like, and the reality is, it's like, I've never read a full manual. If I did, it was so long ago, I don't remember it. I just know to go to the back end and I can find my components. And,
Yeah,
but
it's a great idea.
you know, but yeah, I mean, it would make absolute sense. And in that way too, again, that's where when I'm asking questions, how can our industry be better? It's just like, we have all this technology and things to help everybody participate, and we got to utilize it. And that's why I'm baffled when, the big wigs want to do crazy things that make no sense in trying to save money. How about just less phone calls? Or do you really, and phone calls for warranty stuff? Because the warranty stuff you're not making money off of when you're sending out parts, that's a loss. So teach them to do a better job of taking care of their equipment, and they'll get another year or two out of it. But you didn't have to send out extra parts that ended up being 10 times the value of whatever the amount of years that their equipment lasted longer. So it's
Yep,
just small things like that. We can solve the world's problems on these pods right here.
do it.
you know, well, good deal. Well, cool beans. Um, thank you for hanging out with me today.
Thank you.
I do appreciate it. It wasn't that bad now, was it?
No.
You know, um, I look forward to where things are going. I look forward to seeing what Stepper's doing, especially commercial. That's interesting. That's not what I expected to hear today and whatnot. So I guess we're going to go to a full size, larger machine. Um, Interesting. Interesting. I would tell you, have Australia order in their competition and fix the things that don't make sense. Most of those things that don't make sense are in the shroud. You know, getting into a piece of equipment should always be simple, and it should be repeatable to where we don't damage anything with repeated opening. Because if I got to at least get into it every 6 months and its lifespan is 6 to 8 years, you know,
Yeah,
plus the repairs.
that was something I brought up the other day. Is I was like, we need, I think, maybe a better coating on our shrouds. So I was like, I got a shroud, and it touched something barely and just scratched.
Yeah.
But then I took it out to the parking lot and I was trying to put it in the trash can and I was jumping on it,
And it went
my
break.
body, and it would not break. And I
Yeah.
was like, this should be a video just to show how durable our machines are, but also not, because I was like, I can jump on it, not break it, but I can lean it against something and possibly scratch it.
Yeah.
So I was like, if we're going to have that durable, it needs to be able to be taken off to work on, set aside, and know that it's not going to get scratched because we set it up against the customer's dresser. So there's funny little learning things around, but like that one there, I was like, I'm literally jumping on this thing and it didn't break. I ended up putting it in the truck and taking it to the dump because I couldn't fit it in the trash can because I couldn't break it with my own body weight.
Gotcha. All right, Tabitha, you have a good rest of the day. Um, Again, thanks. We appreciate you. We look forward to seeing where Stepper goes. And by chance, are you going to be down at the HFA show?
I will not.
Okay. Well, if your colleagues are going to be there, are you guys going to show?
I don't know, but I'll ask.
Yeah, make sure that they come by and so I know Jeremy and Ruben are both going to have booths, and I think they're literally side by side.
Oh, okay.
So between and in the middle they'll set up NAHFTA stuff.
That's great.
And stuff. So yeah, but at least have your if they are going to be there, even if just have them come by and just say hello to us. Um, they'll probably be the only Australians that come say hello.
Mhm.
Um, but we just want to get to know everybody and build those relationships. And we're happy that you're there and that you did take, one person that got along with a lot of people from iFit over with you. And yeah, it's pretty cool. So obviously, if you have any questions, give us a call. We always want to see people be successful. And that's the thing too, is you've bothered to ask and no one ever bothers to ask.
My goal. So I appreciate you guys and the communication. And if you guys come up with anything that maybe we can help with, please let us know too.
All right. Thanks, Tabitha.
Thanks. Have a good day.